everybody to the launch of our new campaign. We are Facebook Live, so I needed to mention that. Please keep conversations to a minimum, please. My name is Sarah Hemingway from the Maryland and William Young Charitable Foundation in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I'm taking off my mask. I think it's on there. This past April, I received an email from my good friend Barry Allen. And it always brings a smile on my face when I get something from Barry, and I thought, what is he up to? Well, little did I know, he and 5 other foundations have been working hard to bring us together for this collaborative. So we are thrilled that everyone is here today to see this launch, and I will turn it over to my good friend Barry.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and I want to add my greetings to each and every one of you on behalf of the Bloom Kentucky team, and again express gratitude to each and every one of you for being here. To our fellow Kentucky grantmakers that are here, to local and state government leaders that are here, to some of our not-for-profit leadership here that work in the area of families, children and families. Of course, to the Kentucky Youth Advocates team that's going to be very important in this effort. Also to our Southeastern Council Foundation team that is here that helps the logistics of this whole Grantmakers of Kentucky conference, to media friends that are here, and to any others that I didn't categorize in that other. So I think that your presence here today is an encouraging indication of your compassion of all children in Kentucky experiencing adverse childhood experiences in all of the expressions of that, and your passion to prevent and to mitigate that in the future. So I want to say a special word of thanks to the planning committee of the Grantmakers of Kentucky conference for allowing us to use this time during the conference to launch this important initiative. So I think about this as a historic occasion in the Commonwealth for our children and families, as this constellation of like-minded and warm-hearted grant-making organizations across the state unite for the first time ever to move out of our comfort zones and into educating, encouraging, and enabling our legislative, judicial, and executive leadership in Frankfurt to enact policy changes necessary to prevent and to mitigate the impact of childhood adversity, and thus to cultivate a Commonwealth where all children and families can flourish and have reason for hope for the future. So with the able assistance of and gratitude to the Kentucky Youth Advocates team led by Terry Brooks, together we are launching this formal, coordinated, collaborative initiative we are calling Bloom Kentucky. And this brand was born out of an agricultural mindset as expressed by the logo. Think about soil, roots, seed sowing, fertile ground, nurturing, fruit bearing, and interconnectivity. I also want to express gratitude to some special colleagues to which Sarah referred, who began this journey 2.5 years ago on behalf of our larger group to identify causes and common ground around which grant makers with different missions, different interests could become engaged in public policy advocacy in a collaborative and effective way. And they are Mason Rumble, James Graham Rand Foundation, Tess McNary and Tony Payton of CNS Foundation, Jeff Polson from the Jewish Heritage Fund for Excellence, Tricia Finnegan from the Community Foundation of Louisville, Keith Inman, CoSair Charities, and Kathy Knotts, the Gaines Foundation. special word of gratitude to Ben Chandler, the president of the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky, because Ben helped us discover the most compelling issue around which our individual organizations' interest in education and health intersected. And it was adverse childhood experiences, so thank you, Ben. And then finally, I want to express deep personal gratitude to the leadership of each of the 31 grant-making organizations, starting with Sarah, who accepted the invitation, that email invitation, to participate in this vital initiative and to move beyond just relieving temporary needs and human suffering with grants, as important as that is, to effecting systemic change through policy change. As the late Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood once observed, the world tomorrow will belong to those who give it hope. So each of you and your organizations through this initiative are giving the current and future generations of the Commonwealth's children and families reasons for hope. Amen?
Well, good afternoon. I want to echo what so many folks in this room know, which is that we would not be here today without Barry Allen. And so I'd like you to join me in thanking Barry. He doesn't know. We're gonna honor him a little bit more formally in a later event. But I just need to reiterate the absolute key role that Barry played. It's obvious to me Barry's influence because he told me when we just began to talk, he said, "I'll guarantee you one thing, we will not be the last session on the last day." So thank you, Barry, for that influence. You know, when you think about the last session on the last day, I can't think of a better way to begin than a deep cognitive psychological research study, right? I mean, does that not get you excited? But I was looking at a study recently by Vicki Medvick, and she looked at Olympic medalists over 3 Olympic Games. And here's what she discovered. Bronze medalists were quantifiably happier than silver medalists. Now, that makes no sense. I mean, the silver medalist just beat the bronze medalist. Well, as she dug into this with her colleagues from Cornell University, what she learned was that the silver medalist looked at the gold medalist and thought how close they came. The bronze medalist realized how close they came to not winning anything. I mean, I'm on the lowest step, but I got a medal. Well, the more you think about that study, the applicability is strong because it really has to do with perspective. And when you think about adverse childhood experiences, it's all about perspective. If you look at the infographic on your table, if you see that more than 1 in 4 kids in Kentucky have experienced multiple adverse experiences, when you know that we lead the nation in the percentage of children who are in a maltreatment scenario, you look at issues like parental incarceration and domestic abuse, or you think about, frankly, Kentucky's political landscape. Balkanized, polarized, and toxic. I mean, it would be very easy to have a perspective that adverse childhood experiences is just too complicated, too complex, and too tough to tackle. I mean, isn't it just Kentucky being Kentucky? Well, I know that Barry Allen, all of you, and certainly we at KYA absolutely reject that notion. Peter Drucker has a wonderful quote where he says that leadership is about exploiting opportunities and not solving problems. Bloom is about exploiting opportunities and not just solving problems. And I, for one, am convinced that this initiative is going to bear real fruit in the immediate. And I believe that's the case because we have tried to learn lessons from you all. And I want to talk a little bit about those lessons for a moment. The first thing that I would emphasize to you is that we are not starting from scratch. One of the things that frequently plagues new initiatives is a failure to recognize historic work that got us to where we are. And I want to take just a moment to recognize three folks who I believe exemplify the historic work that has already gone on. Barry stole my line because the first person I'd like to invite up is Ben Chandler. And if you have ever been to Ben's office, come on up, Mr. Chandler. If you've ever been to Ben's office, he literally has awards on the ceiling. So, like, I don't think a poster or plaque's going to work, man. So, Ben, like, I spent actually some time thinking about this. And what we're going to give Ben is a compass for his desk, because when I listen to Barry, you've kind of been the compass guy. You've given the direction. You keep offering true north as a way to improve kids. And on behalf of all of us here, but especially KYA, I just want to thank you for pioneering this effort. I just want to emphasize the plaques on the ceiling is not hyperbole. So go to his office. I don't think, I believe the first person who I heard persistently pound the pulpit about resiliency is the next person I'd like to bring up. So Secretary Friedlander, you're the pulpit pounder. And Secretary Friedlander, I believe, has been everything from night custodian to secretary in maybe 4, I believe, gubernatorial administrations. That includes Democratic and Republican. In fact, when he returned to Louisville briefly, he was the chief resiliency officer for our community here. And in many ways, he is the chief resiliency officer for the state of Kentucky. Secretary Friedlander is a guy that, whether he is talking about child abuse or health care, the pandemic or kinship families, resiliency and trauma and mitigating adverse experiences drives every decision, I really think, every day. And Eric, in a lot of ways, we are on this topic, and we are where we are because of your early pioneering voice. Thank you so much. Finally, I know that if you read the newspaper, you may deduce that it's tough to get something done in Frankfurt. Frankly, our experience is counterintuitive to that because we really have seen great success and commitment to kids from the General Assembly. And nowhere is that more exemplified than Senator Max Wise. Senator Wise, come up here. Senator Wise, editorial, I would note that Cardinal Stadium is right there. Okay? So I just wanted to mention that to you. In the aftermath, I can talk a lot of efforts that Senator Wise has made, but I just want to give you one. In the aftermath of the Marshall County tragedy, there were 2 pathways available to the Commonwealth. And let me just be very clear. There are a group of people who thought the issue was, can we get teachers on the firing range? Max Wise is the reason that we didn't go that way. Max Wise is the reason that as of July 1 this year, every school district in Kentucky has a trauma-informed plan. Max Wise is the reason that as kids come back to school, there's legislative intent to make sure that behavioral and emotional and social supports take primacy. Now, you're going to hear from him in just a second, but Senator, you know the respect I have for you on so many levels, and none is more important than what you've done for resiliency and combating trauma for Kentucky's kids. So thank you so much. That's L's up, Senator. So, historic work is one reason that this is going to work. The second reason that this is going to work, you can see in this crowd, a key to success on a campaign like this is guiding and unlikely coalitions. There is not a table in this room that exemplifies that more than that back homogeneously grouped table from Owensboro. My first experience at KYA a decade and a half ago was to visit Owensboro. And since then, I have watched on initiative after initiative, but especially around economic well-being, where foundations in the Owensboro area pull together the most unlikely of partners. There's the Federal Reserve at the table, and there are low-income moms and dads talking to the Federal Reserve, as well as philanthropies and community leaders. And what I would want you to know is that we have every intent to engage you, your board, and your communities in creating a guiding and unlikely coalition where expertise and influence and credibility percolate so that Senator Wise and his colleagues, as well as the Beshear administration, know that folks in all 120 counties are committed to this issue. And so we have historic work. We have the potential for an incredible guiding coalition. I'd like to just mention two other lessons that I want to make sure you know we guarantee are going to happen. One of those is persistence. Again, as we think about the lessons around policy that at least I've learned from the philanthropic community, Keith Inman and Kosare Charities exemplify persistence to me. In 2013, the charities gathered together a group of people and said, we're making a 10-year commitment to combat abuse and neglect across Kentucky. The good news was that it took them about 2 years to figure out that 10 years was not enough. So I think Keith would tell you that they're in for the long haul. I mean, the metaphor I use is that whether it's the Charities Face It campaign or whether it's the Bloom Initiative, folks, this is not a microwave proposition. It's a crock pot commitment. So I want you to know that you have plenty of time and plenty of room to become more and more engaged in this. Anyone who thinks that we're going to win the comprehensive approach to combating adverse childhood experiences in 1 year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years is sadly mistaken. So again, honoring historic work, guiding coalitions, persistence, and the fourth point I would make is that good is not the enemy of perfect. When I think about that, I mean, we've already mentioned him twice, so Ben, I'm going to send you a bill. But when I think about the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky's work on tobacco policy, I bet you if you ask Ben, have you gotten where you want to be, he would tell you absolutely not. But if you ask him, are we better off than we were? Absolutely so. Well, folks, that's what you're going to see around this initiative. I believe that we have three distinct opportunities in the immediate. One is some distinct policy changes in Frankfurt. And we're going to begin that process in 2022. The second opportunity we have is the state budget. So the 2-year budget will be debated, decided, deliberated, and agreed to in the 2022 session. I think Senator Wise would confirm that you only get one bite at that apple every 2 years. And that we talk policy till the cows come home, but your priorities are reflected in budget commitments. So if we really want to think about beginning to mitigate adverse childhood experiences, that state budget has to reflect that. I mean, wouldn't you love to see Senate, House leadership, and the governor stand together and say, the budget we are entertaining, we all agree, has a Bloom piece of the budget that we all agree on? That's the kind of, we're not going to get everything we want in that budget, but we're going to get something of that, I'm convinced. The other thing that I just have to highlight, and I'm highlighting it with his permission, is Attorney General Cameron is very committed to what this group is doing. As you know, he has on the table not millions, but billions. What do they say? Billions with a B. And that's through the opioid settlement. What he has been very committed to is understanding that absolutely a significant amount of that funding has to go to current efforts underway. So my colleague at VOA will be very happy to hear that. But he also knows that if we don't begin to direct some of those funds to kids, to combating adverse childhood experiences, all we're doing is inventing the next generation of addiction. So I want you to leave here today knowing that I'm not only optimistic, but I'm realistic. And that we're going to get policy wins, and we're going to get components of the state budget, and we're going to get a piece of that opioid settlement in the immediate. But that still alone is not going to solve the issue. So again, I just want to thank all of you, especially that core group who stepped up for funding, especially all of you who have signed on, and especially Barry Allen, who has just kept his shoulder to the wheel. My KYA colleagues know that I love the quote from social observer and education reformer Ted Sizer, who says that we face a blizzard of opportunities and obligations. When I think about Bloom, the Bloom campaign, that's what comes to my mind. Opportunities and obligations. And I'm so appreciative that you're joining us in facing that blizzard. We want to ramp up who's talking at you, so I'm going to get off this. And you're going to hear a message from Governor Beshear. Then you're going to hear some reflections from Senator Wise. So again, Barry, thank you. Thank all of you all. And whoever is queuing up the governor, I think we're ready for him.
Hey everyone, it's Andy. As Governor of the Commonwealth, my top priority is creating a better Kentucky for all, especially our children. And I truly believe we can do that by working together to build the services and support our children and families need to succeed. Today, we are taking another step in the right direction as we come together to support Bloom Kentucky. This initiative is focused on statewide policy change, aiming to prevent and mitigate the impact of childhood adversity. Bloom Kentucky has been developed to address the multi-generational challenges of childhood adversity, the role communities play, and the future of Kentucky's workforce and prosperity. These areas play a crucial role in understanding and identifying what leads to adverse childhood experiences. And it's encouraging to see a plan that seeks to address the root causes for lasting change. Thank you to the organizers of this initiative and to all the grant foundations who have helped make this possible. It gives me great hope to see so many come together to bring much needed change for Kentucky's kids. There are so many areas we must work on to help our Kentucky families and our Kentucky children, from violence, abuse, or neglect, to mental health or instability in the home. These areas all have an impact on the health and well-being of our children. Since my time as Kentucky's Attorney General, I have prioritized protecting the children of Kentucky from predators, abuse, and exploitation. And that work continues today. During this past year, we worked to meet the needs of Kentucky's children as we faced a global pandemic. We administered PEBT benefits to more than 640,000 students, providing meals to children who depend on school meals for daily nutrition. At the same time, we administered SNAP benefits to an average of 100,000 more individuals each month than when compared to the previous year. SNAP is the first line of defense in Kentucky, as nearly 70% of SNAP participants in the Commonwealth are families with children. We prioritize health care for our kids by expanding Medicaid and K-CHIP programs. We distributed over 250,000 masks as a part of First Lady Brittany Bashir's Covering for Kids campaign. And through my Better Kentucky plan, my administration will dedicate nearly $1.3 billion in American Rescue Plan Act funds to build new schools, deliver clean drinking water, and expand access to broadband. This is all while we are seeing our economy surge, with more than 5,000 new jobs in Kentucky announced since the beginning of this year, and over $2.2 billion in total private sector investments. From education to benefits and new jobs for our families, Team Kentucky is working alongside you to help create better outcomes. Together, with efforts like Bloom Initiative and the support of so many community leaders and organizations, I know we can help our children succeed. Thank you for dedicating your time and your efforts to this work. You're the true heroes making a difference in the lives of our children. Remember, we'll get through this. We'll get through this together. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Terry kind of stole a little of my thunder. When I was pulling in, I called my wife immediately and I said, I've made the biggest political mistake, I think, in my 7-year career. She said, what did you do now? Because you used to probably, I'm having many political mistakes. And I said, well, I reached in my glove box and the only mask I had was the mask I wear when I'm a faculty member at the University of Kentucky. And she said, there's no other mask in your vehicle. I said, but there's only one other mask. It's my youngest daughter McLean's unicorn and donut mask. And I was going to put that on, but it looked like a horse bit because it wouldn't cover all of my face. So I'm sure Secretary Friedlander would have been happy that I didn't wear that one in here. So it is an honor to be here today. I want to thank Bloom Kentucky for the initiative that they're embarking on behalf of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, on behalf of the Kentucky General Assembly. Terry, to your folks at KYA, thank you first for the honor, and thanks for all you do for Kentucky. There's a lot of lobbyist groups that say they're for children and for Kentucky. Well, Terry and his group truly stand behind their words, and I appreciate that so much. In my role in the State Senate, I'm also the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, and recently the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce had me on a Zoom call as a panelist to talk with other professors and other legislators and policymakers about the urban and rural divide as it related to education. And we got into that conversation, and actually in about 5 minutes in, there's really no divide on a lot of those issues. The same thing as of today. You think about issues, and many times we find a wedge, or maybe someone tells us to find that wedge between urban and rural, us versus them, but when it gets down to it, we're all Kentuckians and we're all trying to do the best of what we have. And you think about workforce, you think about the opioid crisis, you think about incarceration, you think about child abuse, all the different things that we deal with as policymakers. We don't say, well, that's a Jefferson County problem, that's a Fayette County problem, my hometown of Taylor County problem. No, it's all of ours, and we all have to work together on that. Terry's exactly right. As we go into this legislative session, this is the third straight year of doing a state budget, unprecedented. Because of what COVID gave us, we had to divide the state budget into 2-year increments, or 1-year increment, excuse me, and then now we go into another 2-year budget. I truly believe that if we'd not had the COVID crisis fall at that time of the legislative session, the funding for mental health, the funding for school resiliency, would have been more, and when I say more, it would have been a lot more than what we ended up getting. And the reason because of that, we took a conservative approach, not knowing what COVID was going to be because it was hitting right during that session. So we decided, let's come back and revisit the School Safety and Resiliency Act. Let's go back and look at ACES. Let's go back and look at where we can do some funding. This is the session upcoming that we truly can do that. We're already starting to lay groundwork for that right now. I've already met with school social workers. I've met with school psychologists. I've met with guidance counselors. Because when we talk about school safety, we talk about mental health, we're not talking about the infrastructure of barriers at schools. That's a portion. But it is more importantly about the trauma-informed approach that we take. And that's what this session is truly going to be about. Think about the past year and a half and think about those kids going back into full-time school. Of situations. Once again, it's not an us versus them, urban versus rural. This is a Commonwealth issue. You have my pledge as a Republican legislator to work with the governor, to work with my colleagues across the aisle, because this is a nonpartisan issue. And I appreciate every one of you today for your partnership and your cooperation in coming together for the betterment of Kentucky's kids and for the future of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Once again, thank you all so much for the opportunity to speak here today. God bless.
Thank you, Senator Wise. I'm Jerry Roll. I'm the CEO of the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky. If you've been here today, you know that. Appalachia, Appalachia, it's Appalachia. At least here it is. I too got the call from Barry. And I will say right off the bat, nobody knows ACEs better than those of us who live and work in southeastern Kentucky. We were dealing with ACEs before ACEs were cool. Substance use disorder, poverty, all of the things that come from that have an effect on our children and our Commonwealth. I was happy to get the call from Barry because this isn't a rural Eastern Kentucky issue or an urban issue, as Senator Wise just said. It is a Commonwealth issue. What thrilled me about getting the call was we get to have a voice this time. That there was a reason for Eastern Kentucky to get the call and be at the table to say, not tell us how bad it is. Let's don't exploit how wrong you are down there. What's wrong with you people? Let's explore what's right and what's happening in your region to address this issue, because we know you've been working on this stuff for a really long time, and we appreciate and value your work and your effort and what you're doing to address it. So I got the call because we get to lead sometimes, and we also know how to follow when it's time to follow. So I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm excited to bring the voice of Becky Stacy with the Appalachian Early Childhood Network that you heard Kristen talk about earlier, who is our regional, represents our foundation in our region on early childhood issues and ACEs. To bring Amelia Kirby with the Revisioning Floyd County, an advocacy group looking at incarceration rates in rural Kentucky counties and what we do and how we might model doing that differently and how that affects our children. Eastern Kentucky has a voice, and we want to use it. And we are so proud and happy to be a small voice in this big crowd. So thank all of you for allowing us a seat at your table. We will do you proud. We will be a voice. And I'm going to turn it back over to my friend Sarah.
Thank you, Jerry. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Sarah Hemingway from the Young Foundation in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I represent my colleagues from the western part of the state. I've got my esteemed colleagues from Owensboro in the back. We have Muhlenberg County represented here, and we have Paducah over here to my right. I echo exactly what Jerry says. We are staying ready to show what we are doing in our communities, that we are already trying to address ACEs, but we are ready to learn from everybody else what we could do better and to share what we are doing that might help you in your community. So I cannot, when I got that email, I just read through and I thought, this is what we should be doing. I was one of the most exciting days I've had in a long time. Barry, thank you, my friend. We are ready to have our social and reputational capital used with our legislators. I promise you we will, and we thank you for the opportunity, KYA and Senator Wiseman. I'd like to wrap this up by saying thank you to the audience for being here. We will have opportunities for the media to interview in the hallway afterwards. And I just want to say finally that I think that Bloom, Kentucky puts us on track, ready to race. We got Barry and Terry as our judges. If I could get over there to those betting windows, I'm going to bet that Bloom, Kentucky is going to be a winner. So thank you, my dear friends and colleagues, and we look forward to working with you.